everyone. Let me share my screen and officially start the presentation. All right. So I'm super excited to be here and to share my thoughts about PKM and magic, because this is something I'm very passionate about. My presentation is not going to be very tech heavy or like what and how I do in Obsidian. It's going to be more about like how I think. So things are done. I use, as Phil already mentioned, my PKM to and things I learned in this workshop to manifest, to enhance the law of attraction, and to alchemize the day-to-day experience into universal lessons. So in my opinion, the magic is in the way our perception changes the world around us and in our ability to shape our perception through conscious weaving of our understanding. I call this process of conscious weaving meta-architecture. And let me show you how it actually looks like in my head and therefore in my life. So there are three dimensions of our existence that are talked about a lot in metaphysics. There's physical, mental, and spiritual, or 3D, 4D, and 5D. So the physical is the one, like the kind of the material world that we can touch and feel. And then there's mental, the 4D, and if those dots remind you of Obsidian graph, that's kind of what I'm getting at. And then there is spiritual, which is the God, universal consciousness, universe, soul, love, and light. And so the idea is that when in 4D, we start consciously creating our understanding, our perception, we start connecting these dots in a sort of prism, right? Like an Obsidian logo. And when we create it, oops, it keeps hovering. But anyways, when we create a mental model or a prism a certain way, the light from the spiritual goes through this dimension, like kind of breaks on different angles and creates a hologram in our 3D world, highlighting the experiences and things that we want to see, therefore creating our ideal life. Kind of the foundation of manifestation. So let's dive into actually building the mental model, how this process works, looks like for me, well, parts of it at least. It always starts with the vision, right? What do I want my end result in 3D world to look like? And for me, the ideal 3D result is the life that allows me to experience life only as lessons, convert feelings into art and experiences into stories, convert art and stories into money and other resources, and share the lessons learned along the way with the world. And here I inserted that quote about not working a day in your life, doing what you love. So that's kind of my ideal goal. And now the question is, great, so we know the outcome. How do I now shape the dots in my mental 4D space into a prism that will reflect the light a certain way so like my life looks like this? How do I create a perception of my world according with this vision? And it's funny because it actually starts with the question, like how to build a matching mental model. Everything in my process starts with an atomic question that is then planted in my forest of questions. And then I leave it there and let it grow. So the forest of questions, I kind of collapsed it because, you know, a lot of personal stuff happening there. But it's just kind of like a very high level outline of big questions that I ask myself. And it's kind of an outline of a tutorial, or like of a manual book, how to not work a day in my life, how to be happy as a creative, how to balance creativity and productivity. That's what the forest is. And then throughout my day-to-day, I observe and note my encounters, thoughts, and even fears, and then I put them in those containers that I created, kind of just sorting them through. That's the add part of the arc. And then I find patterns in the cause effects of my life. From what I noticed, I draw connections, and I do so by sense making and map drawing. The sense making we all learn together here in this workshop, and the map drawing, I just want to show you how it looks like for me, because I actually draw these maps in my journals by positioning the thoughts on the paper so that it makes sense for me. If Obsidian Canvas could do this for me, I would definitely do it there. And another thing about finding patterns, did you know that the word pattern comes from a Greek pater, which means father? And to me, that kind of correlation with the universal consciousness that is always above and is always a higher order pattern is fascinating. Anyways, so once then conscious pattern becomes conscious, I can change it. And as I change it, the new pattern invites new experiences in my life that I can feel. And that also reflects, so the new 3D life reflects the light and creates the shadow of my mental model. Somewhere here, I usually freak out because, well, the shadow is scary. That highlights the things of you that you haven't yet experienced or accepted. And so after that, the creative cycle continues. And yeah, so the whole thing about this is that it's highlighted weirdly. It comes in cycles. It comes in different seasons and cycles, and the understanding of my creativity cycle was the crucial part to this whole process. It allowed me to analyze patterns on a larger scale, to just realize that it's not just the day-to-day of the same actions and same outcomes. It actually takes time for things to manifest. And then also it allowed me to not force actions, not to force action, or like maybe sometimes force action, by understanding the seasons of creativity. As you can see here, there are different emojis representing different seasons of creativity. There's spring, summer, fall, and winter, and different activities take place in different seasons. So let's take a look at this wonderful table that I started combining actually around light 13. So there are 4+1 phases, which are the 4 seasons, and then thanks to Karen Hume, the liminal space, which I wasn't aware before her presentation. The liminal space is the dark place between the cycles where sometimes like the shadow emerges. And for each of these spaces, I actually have a metaphorical place where I'm hanging out in my mental model. The forest, the mountain, the sea, and for the liminal space is the wilderness. The wilderness is actually the shadow of the forest. So if the forest is the things that I do want, the wilderness is the things that I don't want. And what helped me is actually keeping a log of all the times when I feel like there is no light at the end of the tunnel, everything is hopeless. I would go to the wilderness and leave kind of like a mark on a tree with a date, last been here. And then that actually what highlighted to me the cyclical nature of these kind of states. And the more I observe the patterns, the less I would find myself in the wilderness. All right, so that's on the 4 seasons of creativity. And now I just want to show you how I have it set up in my Obsidian so that it allows me to track these seasons. A little bit of just a little bit of a tech thing. So yeah, Obsidian helped me do this tracking and this observing with the help of periodic notes plugin and the data view plugin. So each daily note of mine has a current cycle date property. And based on that, all of the pages within a current creativity cycle are being combined in the current cycle page. Which one of them is being then archived in kind of log of cycles. But this is how current cycle page looks like. It has a log of all the days within that cycle separated by the seasons, so I can see when I was in which day. I can also see all the pages created within that cycle. Doesn't work very well, actually. This is not true. I'm not that prolific yet. I think Obsidian Git is messing up with my created dates. And then there's just a log just for any miscellaneous kind of things to jot down that doesn't make it to the daily note. And then the questions would be the list of questions that I am working on in this cycle, like the parts of my mental model that I'm building in this cycle of creativity. Yeah, and the important thing to note is that this process is always in a perpetual state of change. This process of manifestation is always a cycle, and it never really arrives at the perfect end result, which is good. That's what all the wise men tell us, to embrace the change. And one last final thought is that really the ultimate goal is to create the world that fully reflects the unconditional love and light, just the 5D into the 3D, the new earth, for those of you who do know. But that would require to not have any thoughts in the 4D. And if you have a showcase on how to do just that, please send me a link. Thank you. That's it for me.